having units get into the scene now. There may still be somebody actively shooting.
And then he pulled out a shotgun. I could see it clear as day. And then he just opened fire on the front rows. I watched 2 shots. He shot once, and it just lit up the theater. And then he cocked and shot again.
In those seconds, Pierce O'Farrell came face to face with a killer. When the gunman entered the theater, he was no more than 30 feet away from O'Farrell.
He seemed very methodical. He never once said a word. I never heard a single word out of him.
Within seconds, the gunman turned the weapon on O'Farrell and his friend.
And he said, Pierce, I'm shot, man, I'm shot. I said, me too, just stay down. And then he shot me a second time.
The gunfire seemed to go on forever. O'Farrell feared his life would not.
I thought he was going to kill me.
O'Farrell lay motionless on the floor of the theater, hoping the gunman would take him for dead.
And he was standing literally directly above me. I could feel his boot right next to my head. And I just had my face down on the ground. And I just stayed as still as I possibly could. And I prayed and I prayed. And he fired off a couple more rounds. And then he left.
Pierce O'Farrell is dealing with wounds to his leg and shoulder that will heal. It's the pain he feels for others that may never heal.
And that's what I think about all those poor people that didn't make it.
In Aurora, this is Dave Delozier, 9 News. Some days...
Nice of you to come out in this weather.
In some places...
Thanks for coming this morning.
Someone just needs to be there.
She served during World War II.
This was one of those days.
This morning we're just here to honor Miss Betty.
A drill instructor during World War II, Betty Lance lived her last days at the Veterans Home at Fitzsimmons.
She's a good friend. She had nobody else.
Nobody, until a chance meeting 2 years ago found her a family in the veterans group, the Patriot Guard.
This was a gal that lived life on her own terms and with her own rules. If you didn't like them, she didn't care.
Today, they remembered the time spent with Miss Betty, the occasional beer shared, and the stories.
If you were going in and she was grouchy during the morning, we'd say, Betty, you are one grouch this morning, and this is at 89. Well, I should be. I haven't had a man in a week.
That was Betty, gruff, straightforward, the drill instructor to the end. But there was another side of Betty.
She was very sad to be by herself. She had told me one time that she was so afraid to pass away by herself.
So when that time came...
Ray Hoskins and Randy and Don Raybine were there all night.
Because we didn't want her to be alone.
And she was, they were there in the end.
And they were all there today.
All of you brought smiles and happiness to this wonderful lady.
They remembered a veteran and a woman who would have found humor in a spring snowstorm.
She is laughing right now because this is kind of symbolic of her personality.
They were there for Miss Betty in life.
But we were her people, and she told all the people in the Fitzsimmons that her people were coming and her people would be there.
And they were there today.
She's a veteran, and she deserves not to be alone or forgotten.
At the Fort Logan National Cemetery, this is Dave Delozier, 9 News.
We do continue our team report with Kevin Torres, who was along Cherry Creek in Denver, and Dave Delozier in Boulder.
We start with David. And David, sirens were activated in Boulder tonight over concerns that heavy rainfall had created a surge that was heading down Boulder Creek.
Yeah, Mark, you know where I'm standing right now, it might look like I'm standing in Boulder Creek, but I'm not. This is actually a bricked-in sitting area that they created. The actual edge of Boulder Creek is about 20 feet behind me, so that gives you some idea of exactly what the water levels are right now in Boulder. Now, the National Weather Service issued that flash flood warning earlier for this evening for the central Boulder area, for Boulder Creek, and for the 4 Mile Burn area. That all happened because of about 1.5 inches of rain fell in the foothills area west of Boulder in a very short period of time, something that we always fear. We get a storm that gets into these canyons and it dumps a large amount of rain in a short period of time. And it was even compounded by the fact that you've got the 4 Mile Burn area up there. You don't have a lot of of vegetation to hold the moisture onto the slopes, and you wind up with debris and water going into the creek, creating a dangerous situation. They were concerned that Boulder was going to get hit with a 4-foot surge of water. As a result of that, they did issue evacuation orders for some residential areas of Boulder and for the Boulder Creek area. Now, the good news is those evacuation orders have been lifted. I talked to a police officer early, and he tells me that surge of water has passed and it managed to stay within the banks. So that's all good news. The evacuation orders, as I said, have been lifted. But we do have some problems in Boulder County with regard to some road closures, and those road closures are up in the 4 Mile Canyon area, the Lee Hill area. Those are a result of some debris that's been washed off of the hillsides onto the roads. There's crews up there that are working real hard to try to get single lanes open, hopefully get both lanes open as quick as possible. But as Kathy said, this is going to be a situation that's going to have to be monitored throughout the night. There's storms. One just passed by us just a few moments ago, and Kathy tells me that there's some more just to our west. So this creek is going to have to be something that we're going to watch for the rest of the night.
You bet.
Mark and Adele back
An
there.
anxious night up there. Dave Delozier reporting live from Boulder. Dave, thank you.
It's really pushing up against the I-70 corridor now.
Growing to more than 12,000 acres, the Pine Ridge Fire has literally burnt right down to the edge of the Colorado River. Burning in rough open country, the fire is threatening homes in Quebec.
Last night, Mesa County Sheriff ordered an evacuation of approximately 50 homes that could be most impacted by the fire.
Helicopter and air tankers are being used extensively because fighting the fire in this kind of terrain is flat out tough.
Well, there's a lot of things that are kind of against us. One, the weather. It's extremely hot and dry, and the winds pick up in the afternoon, so that makes it more of a challenge. The rugged terrain means it's harder for us to actually get into the fire area in an efficient way.
Today, firefighters from around the country started arriving. These crews are from Arizona. There are now firefighters from 9 different states working this fire, some from as far away as Pennsylvania.
As we're competing for resources, as a lot of people know, there's a lot of fires going on in Colorado, and we're all starting to compete for the same resources.
So far, the fire has burned 3 backcountry structures. There are 35 oil and gas wells in the burn area, but the operators closed them off, which means they are no longer producing oil and gas. With the fire burning so close to I-70, there have been periodic lane closures to the road, something that officials say could happen again if the fire shifts. In Mesa County, this is Dave Delozier, 9 News. Shanksville is a quiet, blink-and-you'll-miss-it little town in western Pennsylvania, but it found its place in history 10 years ago on September 11th. For you see, it was right here where 40 passengers and crew members of Flight 93 fought back against terrorism.
Shanksville has one street. The census says there's 245 people live there.
For almost 200 years, history books had little reason to even take notice of this town.
Not a whole lot happening in Shanksville.
That all changed at 10:03 a.m. on a day none will forget. Coming from just over that ridge, history found Shanksville.
United 93, United 903, do you hear Cleveland?
When suddenly there was this I have difficulty describing the loudness of this plane crashing. The house shook.
Shaken, too, was an entire country. History remembers that day for the nearly 3,000 lives lost in New York and Washington to terrorism. History remembers Flight 93 for the 40 passengers and crew members who stepped up to stop it.
What's just as important about what happened that day is also what didn't happen that day. Flight 93 was 18 minutes away from reaching Washington, D.C., either the U.S. Capitol or the White House as a potential target. And had the 40 people on board not acted in the way that they did, bravely, heroically, courageously, then we might be talking about an entirely different memorial.
In the 10 years since, more than 1 million of us have made this walk.
It's just something we really needed to come see. Saddest thing.
We come here to remember.
It's remarkably too easy to put the memories, to bring the memories back.
Tough day.
We come here to look at that ridge.
It was about 50 feet over that ridge when it cleared that ridge.
And we try to imagine the unimaginable, what those final seconds must have been like.
And I try to put myself on the plane, I think we all do, and think, you know, what would we do?
Can't imagine.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
10 years of time have done little to fade the memories.
I think this is just embedded in our memory so much, it's about like yesterday.
Now it is quiet here. So very quiet.
You really do get, I think, a sense of peace out here.
10 years after that day, Shanksville, Pennsylvania is again a quiet place, but it will never quite be the same place because history will never forget.
Oh, I think it will always be part of Shanksville. It can't be otherwise.
In Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
It's a place of history.
This is Dave Delozier, 9 News.
The tradition here is really important.
Being part of this isn't just something you see, it's something you feel.
It feels amazing to just have that opportunity to wear the jersey.
And to be a Golden High School Demon.
For me, it's a ton of tradition.
John Anderson has been the coach here for 14 years and remembers all those teams, those faces, those names.
Golden, we kind of pride ourselves on, having tough kids that will respond to some adversity and get after it, and Brad Lukeman was the epitome of that.
You see, being a Demon isn't just something you call yourself, it's how you play.
Brad Lukeman!
He was good. He was a great player, great Demon player, scrappy player.
For me, basketball was high school.
And for the 4 years Brad Lukeman played here, well, he was never alone.
Scotty was just always just a fixture in our program.
The little brother who watched and learned from the big brother until he graduated.
A lot of people like to say he's sort of part of Golden basketball, and he's always dreamed of being a Demon. And
there you go, right at 7.
So when it came time to go to high school,
he's just melted right in.
There was no doubt where Scotty would go. The doubt was what he would do once he got here.
Yeah, I guess I kind of envisioned that probably ending when he got into the high school situation, that he would, be a manager or be probably involved somehow, but I really didn't envision him as a player.
But Coach Anderson did.
He would kind of, say, well, maybe he could be a manager and help out, and that's not what Scotty dreamed about on the sidelines there. I mean, he'd done that. He'd been a manager,
and he hadn't had the chance to do this until now.
Come on, Scotty!
A freshman on the freshman team.
Uniform's a big part of it for him.
Scotty waited 6 years for this.
I'm happy.
I don't believe in it's somebody's turn. Unless you earn it. Well, Scott Lukeman has earned it.
Not the tallest or the fastest, he does know what it means to be a team.
Everybody kind of comes together around Scott. He really brings us together.
But that doesn't mean he's not prepared. See that move? Remember it.
He definitely feels the excitement in that gym. Yeah, what about Cole?
And as the end of the game nears, for the player who's waited so long, it's time.
Come on, Scotty!
You need to understand Scott Lukeman isn't on this team because of who his brother is or who the coach is. He's a Demon because of who he is, a basketball player.
A kid like Scotty makes everybody understand what sports is all about.
And for anyone who doubts what they saw, well, doubt no more.
Yeah!
6 years ago, Scott Lukeman had a dream of being like his big brother, of being a Demon.
I think what the biggest thing it does for him is he feels part of something.
Something that won't end here.
The dream is not to score a basket in a level 3 game. The complete dream is that he's going to play varsity someday and score. But this was just another first step in achieving that goal and that dream someday, and it was unbelievable.
Years from now, the tradition of the Golden High School Demons will still be here, and new students will learn about the teams and the names.
That is a name that is pretty important in Golden basketball.
And they'll learn what it means to be a Demon.
He's been one ever since he came into this gym, and he always will be one.
In Golden, this is Dave Delozier, 9 News.
No, for some reason I loved that truck, and Bruce ended up remembering that.
It was a gift, an anniversary gift.
So my dad had a '59 Chevy pickup.
Bruce Hayes knew how much this truck meant to his wife, and he knew how much she meant to him. So he searched and searched until he found it.
I walked outside, and he's like, "Look what I found."
The perfect gift, but it was in anything but perfect shape.
And it was all in pieces. Literally in pieces.
But that was okay. They had built a life and a family together. They would do the same with this.
He wanted to do it together. He goes, I was thinking we could do it together.
His love guided Bruce Hayes' life for his family, and something else.
Bruce Hayes was a soldier.
A captain in the Wyoming Army National Guard. He was being deployed to Afghanistan. Finishing that old truck would have to wait.
What I remember most is we all got our assignments.
An assignment that would take Bruce Hayes up a road to a remote village near the Pakistan border. In his path, a roadside bomb.
And on 17 September, around 5:30 in the morning, he was killed.
And that's when Chaplain came to the door.
Gone. The soldier, the husband, the father. But he had left one final gift. Remember that old pickup truck? Well, before leaving, he had paid a local mechanic $17,000 to fix it up. It was to be a surprise.
And after he was killed, the guy took the money and ran. It was very difficult.
The money was gone, but not the memory of the man.
Part of Bruce is just in this truck. He always saw things to the finish.
And now the best way to honor a soldier, a friend, was to finish it. Well, they stripped away the rust. Word about this project spread.
This thing took a new life.
From literally all across this country,
here's a guy out of Massachusetts,
came the pieces that would finish what Captain Hayes never got the chance to.
I mean, so when you get that kind of feedback across the country, this is going to be a community truck.
An engine from Longmont, parts from literally everywhere, all put together at Stevenson Automotive in Denver, while students at Wyotech, a technical school in Laramie, worked to make an old truck look anything but.
What a story this truck is going to have.
And that's the point to all this, to help two little girls remember their dad.
She asks me all the time to tell her stories about Daddy. So I'll be able to tell her stories about Daddy as we're driving down the truck.
And so it is that 10 months after this all started,
this project has touched many lives.
They all came together with a family for this one moment.
Oh my gosh!
The job done, just the way Captain Hayes would have wanted. A 59 Chevy Apache pickup that will forever remind a family of a husband and a father's love. In the end, Captain Hayes' one last gift for his family was delivered by the community, the same community Captain Hayes died for, defending.
Thank you and God bless all of you. You've done such a beautiful job, and Bruce would be so honored.
In Laramie.
It's Bruce's last wish.
This is Dave Delozier.